Who was this king everyone feared? Why did he stay hidden? And what truth was buried beneath all these rumors? Arya didn't know it yet, but asking that question was the first step into the story fate had already written for her. The kingdom of Eloria shimmered under its early winter snow, but no glow in the land could melt the cold surrounding its young ruler. King Cassian Hale, at only 34 years old, had been forced onto the throne after his father's death. The crown pressed heavily on him, but not as heavy as the wound he carried inside. Before he became king, Cassian had loved once, and he loved deeply. He trusted the wrong girl. He believed in the wrong promises. And the betrayal cut him so sharply that something in him simply shut down. Since that day, he built his heart like a fortress. No doors, no windows, no second chances. His mother, Queen Mariel, tried everything. She begged him to meet noble ladies, to attend royal gatherings, to give himself even the smallest chance at happiness. But Cassian always replied the same way. I will not love again, ever. Every winter, the kingdom celebrated a grand Christmas festival, full of music, lanterns, fireworks, and joy. Yet Cassian never attended. He remained inside the palace walls, hidden, distant, untouchable. The people began to fear him, not because he was cruel, but because he was invisible. Rumors grew like frost on a window. The king feels nothing. The king hates Christmas. No one has seen his face in years. Cassian didn't correct them. He didn't care to. Winter felt safer than warmth. Silence felt safer than hope. And distance felt safer than love. Aria's arrival at her aunt's house was warm in a way that made the cold outside feel almost magical. The moment the door opened, the smell of cinnamon tea and roasted spices wrapped around her like a hug. Arya, you're finally here! Her aunt pulled her in, kissing both of her cheeks before her cousins hurried forward. Tessa, bright-eyed and always excited, grabbed her suitcase. Mira, softer and calmer, placed a warm coat over Arya's shoulders. They didn't start gisting immediately. They sat her down, gave her hot chocolate, and let her catch her breath after the long trip. Only after Arya relaxed on the sofa did Tessa clap her hands. Okay, now we can gist you about what's happening in Eloria this Christmas. Mira nodded eagerly. Arya, the festival this year is going to be huge. Plays, concerts, the lantern walk, fireworks, everything. And guess what? Tessa added with a grin. We're participating. All of us, you too. Arya blinked. Me? In what? Mira laughed softly. In everything. You're not escaping. We already signed you up for the lantern walk and the snow parade. Arya pretended to gasp. So I don't even get a choice. Nope, Tessa said proudly. And the best part? The queen is attending the main event this year. Everyone's excited. Arya's eyes widened. Really? The queen herself? Yes, Mira replied, tucking her hair behind her ear. She always attends, even though... She hesitated. Arya leaned forward. Even though what? Tessa shifted uncomfortably, her voice dropping just a little. Well, the king never comes. Arya frowned. The king? Why not? The girls exchanged looks, the kind people make when they are repeating a story and no one fully understands. We've never seen him, Mira admitted. Not even once, Tessa added. He never attends public events. Not the festival, not the parades, nothing. Arya raised a brow. Is he sick or something? No, both girls said at the same time. Mira sighed. People say he's strange. Tessa nodded. Some say he doesn't believe in love. Others say he refuses to marry. Some say he just doesn't care about anyone. Arya slowly sipped her drink. So these are all just stories. Exactly, Mira said. No one knows the truth. Everyone just judges him based on rumors. Tessa shrugged. All we know is that King Cassian is young, but completely unreachable. And nobody, Mira added quietly, really knows what he's actually like. The palace of Eloria was usually silent during the Christmas season, almost painfully silent. But that morning, the sound of hurried footsteps and cheerful laughter echoed through the marble hallways. Cassian looked up from the documents on his desk just as the guards opened the door, and there he was. Rowan, his cousin, his childhood partner in troublemaking, the only person Cassian ever allowed close after his heartbreak. Rowan dropped his bags instantly and spread his arms wide. Cassian, you frozen statue, come here. Cassian couldn't help a small smile, rare, faint, but real. He stood and embraced him, the tension in his shoulders easing for the first time in weeks. "You're taller," Cassian murmured, "and you're still dramatic." Rowan shot back, grinning. Queen Marielle entered the room moments later, her joy unmistakable. "Rowan, dear, look at you. It's been too long." Rowan hugged her warmly. "I couldn't miss Christmas in Eloria again. Father sent me ahead. Business is finally stable in the east, so I'm home for the whole season." Marielle placed a hand over her heart. "This palace has missed your laughter." But Rowan's eyes went straight back to Cassian, filled with mischief. "So, cousin," he said, rolling his sleeves, "Christmas season in Eloria. What have you planned? What events are you hosting? What shows are we running this year?" Cassian sat back down. "Nothing." Rowan blinked. "Nothing? Meaning what?" "Meaning," Cassian replied slowly, "I am not organizing any events. The villagers and the council arrange their own celebrations." Rowan stared at him like he'd grown 3 horns. "You're the king. You used to love Christmas. Why aren't you planning anything?" Cassian looked away. "Because Christmas is not my thing." "That's the biggest lie I've heard all year," Rowan said immediately. Cassian ignored him, but Rowan didn't stop. "You act like you hate Christmas, but I remember everything." Rowan continued, leaning against the desk. "You and your father lighting the giant tree in the village square. You two walking through the snow handing out gifts. You laughing so hard during the snowball fights that Aunt Marielle thought you'd stop breathing." The queen smiled sadly at the memories. Cassian's jaw tightened. "That was before," he said quietly. Rowan's smile faded. His cousin's pain was something he didn't treat casually. He moved closer, voice softer now. "It's because of her, isn't it?" Cassian didn't answer. He didn't have to. The memory of his first love hit him like cold wind. The lantern night they spent together, the promise she made under the fireworks, the way she slipped away with someone else only days later. Christmas had become a wound that refused to heal. "I don't attend festivals," Cassian said flatly, "and I don't celebrate Christmas." Rowan crossed his arms. "Well, tough, because it's time you stop letting one girl destroy every December for the rest of your life." Cassian glared at him. "Don't push it." "I will push it," Rowan shot back. "Cassian, you've locked yourself in this palace for years. You don't smile, you don't celebrate, you don't step out. Your father would never want this life for you." The room went quiet. Queen Marielle looked at her son with soft eyes. "I miss seeing you happy, Cassian," she whispered. Rowan added gently, "Give Christmas one chance. Just one." Cassian inhaled deeply, fighting the ache in his chest. One chance, one moment, one step outside the cage he built. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "Fine." Rowan straightened, shocked. "Fine?" Cassian nodded once. "I'll go out, only for a short time, and only in disguise. No one must recognize me." Rowan grinned so widely it nearly split his face. "Perfect. I'll get everything ready." Cassian didn't admit it out loud, but somewhere deep within him, a part of his frozen heart cracked open. Cassian had not walked through the streets of Eloria in years. Now, cloaked in a simple brown coat, hood pulled low, he walked beside Rowan as just another commoner. Rowan breathed in the air dramatically. "Smell that, Cassian. That is Christmas joy. Try not to choke on it." Cassian rolled his eyes, but he couldn't deny it. Something about the snow-dusted streets felt strangely familiar, almost comforting. Meanwhile, across the square, Arya and her cousins were busy helping the volunteers set up the lantern hall for the evening festival. Tessa tied ribbons to the poles, Mira arranged the food stalls, Arya carried boxes of lights, her cheeks rosy from the cold. Then something unexpected happened. "Tessa!" a voice called. Tessa froze. She turned slowly, and her eyes widened. "Rowan! Rowan Hale!" Rowan blinked, then broke into a grin. "Tessa Rivers! After all these years!" They hugged like long-lost siblings, laughing loudly. "Cassian, this was my classmate from elementary school," Rowan said proudly. Cassian nodded politely, saying nothing. He didn't want anyone recognizing his voice. "This is my cousin Aria," Tessa added, pulling Arya forward. Arya smiled, warm and effortless. Cassian lifted his gaze, and their eyes met just for a heartbeat. But a heartbeat was all it took. A strange, soft spark passed between them. Unexpected, uninvited, but impossible to ignore. Both of them felt it, and both pretended they didn't. Cassian stiffened immediately. He reminded himself, Never again. Not love, not feelings, not anything. Arya, on the other hand, brushed it off. She didn't want to assume anything. He was just a stranger with kind eyes. Tessa clapped her hands. Why don't you both help us? We still have so much to do. Rowan agreed instantly. Cassian didn't want to, but saying no would draw attention, so he nodded and fate quietly smiled. The volunteers divided the tasks. Rowan and Tessa carried chairs to the far end of the hall, laughing and catching up on childhood memories. Mira joined the other organizers near the stage, and Aria and Cassian were assigned together to arrange the lights and decorate the Christmas trees inside the glowing lantern hall. Aria carried a string of lights, glancing sideways. So, is this your first time here? She asked casually. Cassian shook his head. No, I've lived here before. He kept his answers short, safe, controlled. He didn't want to slip. Arya smiled. I came here when I was little. I remember Christmas being so magical. The tree lighting, the parades, everything felt like a dream. Cassian paused at that. He remembered those nights too. He remembered his father lifting him on his shoulders as the giant tree lit up. He remembered happiness before it turned to ice. Arya continued, unaware. But things are different now. I heard this king hates Christmas. Cassian froze. Arya went on, tying a ribbon. And they say he doesn't believe in love. Like, who doesn't believe in love? That's crazy. She laughed lightly, but Cassian didn't laugh. Hearing the rumor from someone who didn't know he was the king hit him strangely, like a mirror reflecting back the parts of himself he didn't want to face. Without thinking, he spoke. Maybe the king has reasons. Arya blinked. Reasons? You talk like you know him. Cassian swallowed. He had to be careful. I do know him, he admitted. The king is a friend. Arya stopped decorating and looked at him fully. A friend? Cassian nodded. He's not what people say. Arya waited patiently, encouraging him to continue without realizing it. Cassian had never defended himself before, but right now, pretending to defend his friend, he found himself opening up more than he expected. The king doesn't celebrate Christmas, Cassian said softly, because it reminds him of someone he once cared for, someone who hurt him deeply. Arya's expression softened instantly. Cassian continued, voice low, raw. He lost more than people know, more than he allows anyone to see. Arya didn't interrupt. She didn't gasp. She didn't judge. Instead, she placed the lights down, stepped a little closer, and spoke gently. Then he isn't heartless, she said. He's just healing. Cassian's breath caught. Arya kept going, voice warm enough to melt winter. And healing isn't weakness. It means he cared. It means he still cares. Maybe he just needs time. Or maybe, she smiled softly, he needs someone who doesn't give up on him. Cassian stood utterly still. Her words were simple, but they struck him like sunlight breaking through a frozen window. He had never heard anyone speak about him that way. Not with pity, not with fear, but with understanding. Something inside him loosened, lightened, breathed. For the first time in years, he felt a crack in the ice around his heart, a crack made by a girl who didn't even know who he was. Cassian tried to look away, but he couldn't. Her words were still echoing inside him, soft, warm, and painfully true. Arya bent to plug in the lights. The moment she switched them on, the entire hall glowed with gold, red, and silver. Cassian stared at the lights, then at her. She had no idea how deeply she had affected him. She had no idea that her kindness had reached a place in him he thought was long dead. Cassian forced himself to speak, voice barely steady. You speak kindly of him, even though you don't know him. Arya shrugged gently. I don't have to know him to hope he finds happiness. Cassian swallowed hard. He hadn't felt this vulnerable in years. She wasn't trying to impress him. She wasn't trying to flirt. She was just real. And that realness hit him harder than any grand gesture ever could. For a moment, their eyes met again. And this time, the spark wasn't just a spark. It was a pull he didn't want, a pull he didn't trust, but a pull he felt. Cassian looked away quickly, gripping the edge of a table as if steadying himself. Arya didn't push. She simply smiled and continued arranging decorations. And Cassian realized something terrifying. For the first time since his heart was broken, someone's words had reached him. Someone had touched the part of him he swore he'd never open again. And that someone was a girl he had met less than an hour ago. He didn't know her. She didn't know him. But fate knew exactly what it was doing, and fate had just begun. The Lantern Festival was even more beautiful than Arya expected. Music floated through the air, lanterns glowed softly above the village square, and warm laughter filled the night. She couldn't stop smiling. Everything felt magical. Cassian watched her from beside her, pretending to focus on the lanterns, but he kept stealing glances. Her joy was contagious. Every time she laughed at something Rowan said, a small smile tugged at his lips before he could stop it. At one point, Arya told Cassian a joke, and he actually laughed, an honest, unguarded laugh. It surprised even him. Arya's cousin whispered to Rowan, "Wow, your cousin is funnier than he looks." Rowan just smirked because he knew exactly why Cassian was suddenly in a good mood. When the lanterns were released into the sky, Arya whispered, "It's beautiful." Cassian nodded softly. "Yes, it is." For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the warm light reflecting in their eyes. Something gentle, something new pulsed between them, but neither dared acknowledge it. As the festival ended, Arya turned to him with a hopeful smile. "There is another event tomorrow, if you'd like to come." Cassian hesitated, but only for a moment. "All right. And," she added, "if you're really friends with the king, please try to convince him to come out and celebrate Christmas too. He deserves to feel happiness again." Cassian's chest tightened, touched by how sincere she was. "I'll try," he said quietly. She smiled, and that smile went home with him. On their way back to the palace, Rowan nudged Cassian repeatedly like an annoying older brother. "So, you had fun?" Rowan asked, grinning. "A little," Cassian muttered. "A little. Cassian, you were laughing." "You don't laugh." Cassian ignored him. Rowan leaned closer. "Is it Arya?" Cassian stopped walking. "Rowan!" "I knew it," Rowan said dramatically. "You've fallen for her." "I haven't," Cassian said immediately. "I can't fall in love again." But the words felt weak even to him. He tried to explain. "She was kind, and she said nice things about the king." Rowan raised an eyebrow. "You mean about you?" Cassian sighed. "She was encouraging, that's all." But later, when Cassian lay in bed, all he could think about was her smile, her laugh, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about Christmas. He tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face and found himself smiling like a fool. The truth he refused to admit was simple. He already cared deeply without even realizing when it happened. And that night, for the first time in years, he fell asleep peacefully. Cassian woke up unusually early the next morning, awake, alert, and in a surprisingly good mood. He stepped out into the hallways and greeted the palace staff. "Good morning, Your Majesty," they said, confused by the sudden warmth in his voice. Cassian even stopped to ask one of the guards about his family. The guard almost fainted. By the time he reached his mother's chambers, Queen Marielle already sensed something unusual. "Cassian?" she asked slowly when she saw him. "You look happy." "Do I?" he said innocently. "Yes," she insisted. "Brighter, lighter, something happened." "Nothing happened," he said quickly. "I'm fine." She smiled knowingly, but didn't push further. Seeing him this cheerful was enough for her. Later in the morning, Cassian was fully dressed long before the event time Aria mentioned. He paced the room, checking the mirror once, twice, 3 times, trying not to look like he was waiting too eagerly. Rowan finally came out, adjusting his shirt, and stopped when he saw Cassian. "You're dressed already?" Cassian coughed. "We shouldn't be late." Rowan laughed. "Just admit you can't wait to see her." Cassian didn't reply, because silence was the truth. Cassian and Rowan stepped out into the village, once again in disguise as commoners. The air smelled like cinnamon, roasted nuts, and snow, everything that reminded Cassian of the Christmas he once loved. But this time, it didn't hurt. It felt warm. Arya and her cousins were already at the event grounds when they arrived. She was standing with a small group of volunteers laughing at something one of the little kids said. And when she turned and saw Cassian, her entire face brightened with recognition. Cassian felt that warmth again. Dangerous, familiar, but somehow comforting. "Hey, you came," Arya said, walking toward him. He tried to play it cool. "You invited me." She smiled in a way that made his heartbeat pick up slightly. "I didn't think you'd actually show up." Rowan behind them snorted. "He practically dragged me out of bed early." Cassian shot him a glare, but Arya only laughed. The event today was more lively. Street performers, decorated stalls, children running with ribbons, and music everywhere. The villagers were preparing for the winter market show, a smaller celebration leading up to the big Christmas Eve festival. Aria led Cassian around, talking excitedly about each booth, the holiday foods, the performances, and her childhood memories of visiting Eloria. Cassian listened. He didn't say much, but he was truly listening. He noticed things he had never noticed before. The way her voice softened when she talked about her late father, the sparkle in her eyes when she tasted something sweet, the way she interacted with everyone with kindness and warmth. At one point, Arya stopped at a chocolate stall. "You have to try this," she said, holding out a small piece of warm chocolate brittle. Cassian raised an eyebrow. "You're feeding me now?" "It's called sharing," she teased. "Don't be dramatic." He took the chocolate from her fingers and she watched him with a curious expression. "Well?" she asked. "It's good," he said simply. "Just good?" she pressed. He nodded. "Just good." She rolled her eyes. "Wow, tough critic." Cassian found himself smiling, that genuine, unguarded smile that had been lost for years. They walked together for a long while, going from booth to booth. Arya told him stories about her school days, her mother, her dreams. She didn't talk too much, she talked just enough, and Cassian, who usually hated long conversations, found himself wishing she would never stop. At one moment, they passed a group of villagers hanging garlands. One of them waved at Cassian. "Hey, you two," the woman called. "You look cute together. Come help us with this bow." Arya almost choked. "Oh, no, we're not, Cassian looked away, trying not to show how the comment affected him. Rowan burst into laughter behind them. They went to help anyway, and as Arya stood on her toes to fix a ribbon, Cassian instinctively reached out and held the ladder so she wouldn't fall. His hand brushed her ankle lightly. Arya froze for a moment. Cassian did too. There was nothing dramatic, no sudden music, no flash of magic, but something very real passed between them. A small, delicate spark neither dared to acknowledge. When she climbed down, she thanked him quietly, brushing her hair behind her ear, and for the first time in a long time, Cassian felt nervous. Later, as the sun began to set, Arya turned to him and asked, "So, how is the king? Did you talk to him?" Cassian inhaled slowly. He had to choose his words carefully. "He's trying," Cassian said honestly. "He's carrying a lot, more than people know." Arya's expression softened instantly. "He's lucky to have a friend like you." Cassian looked at her, really looked at her. He wanted to tell her everything right there, but he didn't. Instead, he said, "Your words yesterday made a difference." "I hope so," she replied gently. "Everyone deserves a second chance, even kings." Arya said it simply, not knowing how deeply it landed. Cassian nodded, swallowing the emotion rising in his chest. "I'll pass your message to him," he said with a faint smile, "and maybe he'll show up at one of these events." "I hope he does," she smiled back. A little magic never hurt anyone. And Cassian couldn't help but think it already happened, because she was standing right in front of him. The evening was lively, glowing with floating lanterns and soft Christmas music drifting through the air. Snowflakes settled gently on Arya's hair as she walked with Cassian and Rowan toward the small gathering where her cousins were waiting. Her cousins were already in a heated discussion. "I don't even understand that king," one of them said. "Why does he hide himself away? He doesn't celebrate anything. Imagine a whole king acting like Christmas offends him." Arya opened her mouth slightly, ready to speak, but she waited. "Exactly," another cousin added, "and they say he doesn't believe in love. How can a king be like that?" Cassian felt his chest tighten. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, but he didn't want to reveal anything yet. Words were forming in his throat when Arya stepped forward first. "That's unfair," she said sharply, surprising everyone. "You don't know what the king has been through." They all turned to look at her. "You can't judge someone just because they don't celebrate something the way you do," she continued. "You don't know his story, you don't know his pain, and not believing in love doesn't make him cold. It just means he hasn't found the right person or the right reason yet." Cassian froze. Her voice, her defense, the gentle fire in her eyes. He felt something warm spread across his chest. His heart actually skipped. Rowan stared at Arya in surprise. The cousins exchanged confused glances. One cousin asked, "Arya, do you know the king personally?" She laughed softly. "No, I don't, but Cassian knows him. Isn't that right?" Cassian jolted slightly, unprepared. Yes, I'm friends with him." How? Another cousin pressed. Rowan instantly jumped in. They have known each other for a long time. Enough questions. We came here to enjoy Christmas, not interrogate anyone. The cousins backed off and the night continued, but Cassian's world was suddenly different. Every time Arya laughed, he felt it. Every time she smiled, he remembered her defending him with such passion. He had never been protected like that before, not even by people who knew the truth. By morning, the kingdom was buzzing. News had spread. The king would be attending the grand Christmas celebration on Christmas Day. People whispered excitedly in markets, along snowy roads, inside bakeries. Some wondered what he looked like. Others wondered why he suddenly decided to join them. The news finally reached Arya when one of her cousins burst into her room breathlessly. "Arya, the king is coming for Christmas Day!" She smiled instantly. Cassian talked to him, she whispered to herself, delighted. She felt proud of Cassian, proud of her words reaching the king, even though she didn't know the truth. That evening, Christmas Eve, the festivities were even more beautiful. Snow glowed under lantern lights, children sang carols around a huge decorated tree, and warm cocoa filled the air. Cassian arrived early. When Arya spotted him across the square, she lit up like a little sun and ran straight into his arms, hugging him tightly. "Cassian, thank you!" He blinked in confusion. "For what?" "For talking to the king," she said, pulling back just enough to look at him, her eyes shining. "For inviting him to celebrate with everyone. You don't know how happy that made me." Cassian swallowed. "You don't have to thank me. That's what a king is supposed to do." He paused, then added quietly, "And thank you for yesterday, for defending him. Your words meant more than you know." They walked together through the glowing streets. They made a snowman, Arya giggling as Cassian struggled to get the scarf right. They lit lanterns side by side, releasing them into the sky. Cassian watched her face in the warm light, the way her eyes reflected the colors, and he wondered how he had survived a life without moments like this. Arya kept glancing around, excited. She told Cassian she couldn't wait to see the king tomorrow. He smiled softly. If only she knew. Christmas morning arrived with the kind of magic only the kingdom of Eloria could hold. Snow dusted the rooftops like powdered sugar, children ran through the streets wearing red scarves, and music floated from every corner. People exchanged gifts beneath decorated trees, shared warm food, and laughed together as parades filled the main square. But amidst all the joy, Arya's heart felt strangely unsettled. She kept glancing around, expecting to see Cassian. Morning turned to afternoon. Afternoon melted into evening, yet nowhere. Her cousins noticed her quiet searching. "Are you expecting someone?" one teased. Arya quickly shook her head. "No, not at all." But they only laughed. "You're looking for Cassian." She tried denying it again, but her eyes betrayed her. The truth was simple. She missed him. She wanted him beside her for this day. Then the trumpets sounded. A hush fell over the celebration as an announcer stepped forward. Presenting the royal family, His Majesty King Cassian, Her Majesty the Queen, and Prince Rowan. Arya froze. Her cousins gasped loudly. Even Tessa's jaw dropped. She never knew Rowan was a prince. And the king? He had been with them the whole time. They had bad-mouthed him right in front of him. Arya's heart raced. Cassian. Cassian was the king. Her chest tightened, part shock, part hurt, part relief. He had hidden the truth. Yet she was glad he came. Glad he stepped out into the world again. Cassian walked beside the queen dressed in full royal attire. But when he reached the stage to give his Christmas speech, he didn't look like a distant king. He looked human, soft, finally alive. He spoke gently, the whole kingdom silent. "I want to thank you all for welcoming me today," he said. "For years I could not celebrate Christmas. I carried too much pain, and I believed love was no longer meant for me." People listened closely. But this year, something changed. Someone reminded me that Christmas isn't about perfection. It's about opening your heart. And she reminded me that love doesn't disappear. It simply waits. Arya's breath caught. He didn't say her name, but she knew. Every word was for her. "I may be king," he continued, "but I'm not heartless. I'm simply someone who needed a little kindness, and I received it." The crowd cheered, lanterns lighting up the night sky, but Cassian's eyes searched only for one face, Arya's. During the carol singing and the Christmas play, he kept glancing at her. Every time their eyes met, her heart skipped. He longed to sit beside her, to whisper something just for her, but duty held him in place. When the official program ended, Cassian slipped away. He changed out of his royal attire into the simple clothes he'd worn when she first met him. Clothes that made him feel like the Cassian she knew, not the king everyone else saw. He found her standing near the giant Christmas tree, staring at the glowing lights. "Arya," he said softly. She turned immediately. "So, you were the king," she whispered. Her voice wasn't angry, just full of emotion. Cassian stepped closer. "I didn't mean to deceive you. Rowan dragged me out of the palace to help me breathe again. I didn't want anyone to treat me differently, especially you." She looked down for a moment. "You should have told me." "I know," he admitted, his voice low, "but I was afraid. I didn't want to lose the way you spoke to me, laughed with me, the way your kindness healed me. Arya, your words that night, they comforted me more than you know, and somewhere along the way, I fell for you." Her lips parted in surprise, though her heart had already known. She stepped closer. "Cassian, I felt it too. Every time you smiled, every time you listened, every time you simply showed up, I felt something. I tried to ignore it, but I knew." Snow began to fall, soft, slow, magical. Cassian gently touched her cheek. She leaned into his hand. "So what do we do now?" she whispered. Cassian smiled. "We start here, and beneath the giant Christmas tree, with lights glowing like 1,000 stars above them, they shared their first kiss. Warm, soft, full of everything unsaid. The kingdom cheered somewhere in the distance, but in that moment, it was just the two of them. And that Christmas, the king found love, and Arya found her forever." Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe, like, and drop a comment. Bye.